Absolute Martian Manhunter, issue 2, DENIZ Camp and Javier Rodriguez on the art. So obviously this was a bit of a, I don't know if I'd say a surprise, but it definitely was like, oh, this hit in a way that I don't think anyone was expecting last month. So basically, our main character of John is a bit more kind of like aware that he's got another entity inside him, the Martian Manhunter, or the Martian Mind Effer, as he's also going by, is like talking to him, but he's trying to ignore it. The first half of this book, for the most part, is Jean. I'm going to call him Jean. I mean, whether or not he goes by that name.
Yeah.
For now, I'm going to assume.
That's shorthand is what we're used to.
Yeah.
Right.
So Jean's trying to talk to him and tell him there's things to go deal with. And it basically is really inventive in the art because it kind of represents this idea that no matter where he turns, like Jean's face is popping up like on stop signs in the newspaper he's looking at. He comes out of the newspaper even. He's like on the street lights, the traffic lights, just constantly popping up and try to talk to him and say, hey, there's things going on here. Bad stuff's coming. We have to go help people. We have to go do a thing. And he's just trying to ignore him. I think my favorite one of those is probably the parking meter, just because it's so similar to the shape of his head in the first place.
Oh, I like when he jumps into the baby and then John starts yelling at the baby and the mom's, yelling, "Get away from me!"
Yeah, it's funny,
my baby.
right?
That one,
it's legitimately funny. But even though it's
a man losing his mind, and we don't, we understand why, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what makes it comical, is that we understand that he's talking to a real thing, but everyone else just thinks he's going crazy. But while this is all going on, you see like the build-up of what is effectively a mass shooter, preparing for an attack. He seems to have killed his parents, and he's getting ready to go somewhere. And this guy, from a little narration we get from him, is convinced that aliens are among us, and that a lot of people are just pretending to be people, and they're actually aliens. So he's completely psychotic, right? That's the what it's going with. And Jean's trying to be like, hey, like, I can't let you completely understand everything yet because it would just destroy your brain because you're a puny human. But in time, you'll like gradually get to the point of understanding everything. But we get a lot of more crazy art. Jean becomes more things in the street. Like there's like a Madame Xanadu street sign for her shop that turns into, and we get like almost like a They Live style panel, where he's like, hey, look at all these signs. And obviously, I don't think they're literally all these things, but this idea that all the advertising's encouraging violence and hate, because like one's for a gun, one's for knives, one's for, one's like a clan member with a torch. Like, it's just all these awful things, like the worst parts of humanity. And he's like, hey, I'm here to try and help fix all this. We've got to stop these bad things from happening. And he tries to calm down the main character by giving him happy memories. He's looking in his brain. He's like, hey, remember that day you were looking at the neighbor's legs, you were young and she was this attractive, woman next door. Remember that? And it kind of works, and he calms down, and it's like, this is weird. But eventually, he's able to get through the message of like the person that he's like, trying to warn him about, that this shooter that's about to do stuff. And he doesn't quite believe it, but then he immediately gets a call over the phone from the police saying, hey, we've got an active shooter, and he's like, shit, we have to go. So we get like the again, Jean's not physically there, but like the version that he's seeing is like in the car with his feet up on the dashboard, and
that image right there, the Let's Ride partner.
Yeah.
Spooky action heroes at a distance. That made me laugh so hard.
Yeah,
just because it's such a weird sentence.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It fits for how weird this book is.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing about the art here is actually the next page, and you've got the shooter it looks like a kaiju walking between the buildings, and they're driving past them. Obviously not literal for what's happening, but it's the idea of like in the way that when something like this happens, the entire city hears about it, and like everyone gets scared, and it kind of like is this haunting thing over everyone. It kind of felt like that. The interesting stuff here, though, is that when he shows up to the incident, right, and there's already people lying dead, right, so it's quite a dark story ultimately when you get to it, is Jean jumps into the shooter's head and feeds back to our main character John like stuff about this guy, so he's able to try and bluff about like who he is. He says, "Hey, I'm your old friend from school," and like he says the name, and he's like, "I know things that only he would know," and he tries to talk him down and like convince him that, hey, like this isn't a thing. And the two big things that happen here, other than just more of Jean looking through his brain, looking for useful information, things that will help or whatever, is that other police show up and they immediately just want to shoot the guy, and like our main character tries to say, "Hey, no, hold on, I'm talking him down, you know, I'm FBI, blah blah." But just as he's trying to talk to him, and Jean like finds like this anomaly in his brain. He's like, "Hey, that like his brain's messed up. I can fix it. It's basically just a collection of bad ideas that he's picked up from movies mixed with his loneliness." And like it's kind of hinted at that maybe, or at least later on, it's hinted at that this wasn't a natural thing. Like someone did this to him. And that's kind of where we're going with the White Martian stuff, that maybe the White Martian who's on Earth did this to this guy and made him think this way. And which makes sense, because his whole thing is that he's scared and paranoid that there's aliens pretending to be human, which is technically true.
It's true. It's so I listen to a lot of paranormal stuff, and it gets into the conspiracy thing, and
sure.
I wonder if Dennis Camp is into a lot of that, because this hits on a lot of these themes and ideas, and even stuff in Department of Truth with Tynan. This is hitting on similar things to those of like just how toxic are ideas, right? We say that they're just ideas, but they take root and they can actually poison people. And so here we have something that when Jean is talking about it, you know, right before they go off into the car, he tells them that there's, you know, despair, fear, paranoia, rage. It's everywhere. It's a socio-toxic buildup of, quote, bad vibes. And then when he goes into the shooter's mind, he says that it is, let me get back there, it's a level 18 delusion, hallucination, brain rotter, right? So it's like all these bad vibes are building up in these people. And if they get into somebody like him that the White Martian seemingly had something to do with, you know.
Yeah. Whether the White Martian specifically did something targeting this guy, or it's just like he's generally putting out these vibes that are affecting people like him, I don't know, but one or the other.
Because he's more sympathetic to it, because he's been poisoned so far already by these bad vibes.
Yeah.
You know, I just like that, you know, as a society, you know, what Dennis Camp's commenting on here, because it's like, yeah, everything's a conspiracy when you're not smart enough to put things together, right? When you're not able to accept things, that everything looks like a plot against you. But here, like, if you're constantly being told that there's plots against you, you're kind of a victim in it yourself.
Well,
right? Because of
that's the interesting thing about where this goes, is that when Jean fixes his brain, the guy like immediately changes and looks down in horror and goes, "Wait, I didn't want this. What the hell? I think I need help." Like he's literally saying, "I think I need help." He's saying the very right thing. Admittedly, it's a little bit late, but like he's saying the right thing, and it doesn't matter. Like one of the cops just shoots him in the head, which, by the way, the art in that page, which shows all of the thoughts leaving his brain in that multicolored, like sort of Martian Manhunter thought, like sort of art style, is such an inspired choice, because it just represents the idea that everything that's in there is just leaking out that bullet hole. And the funny thing is there's some clearly happy stuff kind of mixed in there. You see like a baseball player, you see like a kid on a dad's shoulders kind of thing, like clearly happy memories mixed in with the sad stuff and the dark stuff.
And it's like, yes, he victimized all these people and he went over them because he thought they were aliens that were hidden as humans, and this was the only way to get them out, right? But again, he's a victim of these bad vibes as well, you know. And we see that here because he's like these happy thoughts. It doesn't look like there's a lot of negative stuff here, you know.
Yeah, because the next page we get kind of like Jean catching a glimpse of what we think represents the White Martian. Is this kind of classic white alien face that's kind of beams out of him and then back into the screens, which is part of also why I was thinking about the 11 a little bit, is the idea of subliminal things in the advertising and whatnot. So no, it's and the end of the book's just the main character going home and not being able to tell his wife about how bad his day was, and you just get this visual of like the Martian Manhunter lying in bed next to the wife. But it is interesting though, because it feels like, okay, this issue, I mean, started with him not wanting to accept this voice in his head and trying to ignore it, and that was kind of funny. But it feels like through this incident, you have to assume that next issue he's going to be more opening to listening to Jean, because they almost, like, if he'd listened to him straight away, could he have saved the people that got hurt? You know, that's possible, right? But even if he couldn't, there was definitely stuff to be achieved in listening to him. And now there's also this central idea of like the villain of the book being a white Martian, which makes total sense that it's a white Martian, because that's just classic Martian Manhunter stuff. But this take on it, super interesting.
Well, and how the white Martians come to end humankind. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, if there are these big thought forms, what has mankind done to draw now the attention of the white Martian that it must be ended? You know,
if that's the case,
it's not like the white Martian's here to control, right? It's here to end humankind.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're assuming it's here because we caught its attention. What if it's just a case of where the Martians came from, which they kind of hint in this might not even be Mars. Like, he might have just used the name Martian to, because you'll understand that, but it's not actually about Mars. But like, you know, maybe it's still like traditional Martian Manhunter where their planet's gone or it's dead. And it's less about anything to do with humanity and more about, we just want this planet for ourselves. So this is like a takeover type thing.
That could be too. Yeah.
I don't know. But, I'm excited to find out though, one way or the other.
Yep.
This was really good. Just like issue 1, it was a very pleasant read. It was inventive. And it's one of those things with the art again where I don't necessarily love like the drawing style all the time, but it's so inventive with how it shows certain things, like the shooter walking over the buildings, like the moment where he gets shot in the head and all the thoughts are leaking out the background, all the super inventive stuff with the Martian face on all the various objects or people in the first half of the book. Like, all of that is so cool. And then even having him riding in the car next to the main character as if it's a buddy cop thing, also really good. Like, it's just full of creativity and great storytelling. It's hard to fault much of it, honestly. It's after 2 issues, it's at the point where, okay, I'm actively excited about this now, issue to issue. All right, Matt, were you rating Absolute Martian Manhunter?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
It's got a straight 9, honestly. I really can't argue for anything less than that.